You know, with all the snow falling outside, Tommy, I feel like it's a good reminder that sometimes as men, we can cover up what's underneath or cover up what's inside, right? Fool people with how we're thinking, acting, or feeling by putting up that false narrative.
Man, that's mental health right there. You know, my guy Will was in here last week. He developed some bad habits as a kid that nearly cost him his life.
I never expected to be here. I never expected to be celebrating life the way I do now. As a young black male in the inner city, talking about your feelings to that level, you didn't do it, you weren't taught to do it, and it was almost encouraged that you do not do it. You didn't talk about mental health. You didn't talk about stress, anxiety. Those types of conversations never existed. They never happened. In fact, if you did talk about it, that was a sign of being weak. Being labeled a punk.
Right.
You know? So you can't be a punk in inner city Detroit. You don't survive. So you play cool, you play tough.
It goes back that far for you then, huh?
Yeah. As far as middle school, you know, I mean, I was the nerd. I was a smart kid, you know.
I see.
I was the kid getting all A's, but I wasn't the cool kid. So you deal with bullying and being teased. We were poor. Getting ready in the morning, knowing you had to leave the house and walk to school, and knowing you're terrified of the unknown, terrified if you're going to get bullied on your way there, worried if you're going to see something bad and dangerous happen at school, and then you got that walk coming home. So bottling that stuff up and holding it in and acting like it didn't exist, that's how you dealt with it. I wish I knew that bottling it up, how that could really have a negative impact on you in your later years. I was in a great place. 2 great young kids in high school. I was married at the time. I had a really good career. I was healthy, great friendship circle. If you didn't know me, you thought, my gosh, that dude, I guarantee you he loves life. Because on the surface, it looked like that. But inside, the demons just started coming to life, waking up cold sweat. I mean, you wake up, you have such a level of nervousness. I wake up in the middle of the night, I'm like, why am I sweating? What am I upset about? What am I nervous about? Things just stack up and up and up. And before you know it, you're below water and you're drowning. You're drowning in your own anxiety, your own stress, your own self-doubt, your own pity. I think one of the biggest things that came from me was pity. I felt sorry for myself. I was frozen in my own selflessness and lack of self-worth. Unmanaged, unchecked anxiety, it can lead to darkness. It can lead to stress, higher levels of stress, depression, and even darker thoughts beyond that. You know, self-hurting, giving up on life. I was there. I can look you in the eye and tell you I was there. I didn't see a positive end. I didn't see a positive outlook. There was no light at the end of the tunnel. I had built a plan because hope was gone for me. So I built a plan. I had written letters to my 2 kids. And I was ready to stop battling. A fight is a fight when you feel like you can win. But a fight is no good when you feel like you don't have a chance to win. I was lucky though. I had a good friend who I was able to reach out to, and this gentleman was traveling overseas, and by the grace of God, he picked up his phone that day. Had he not, I think I wouldn't be sitting here, but he picked up the phone and he talked to me and gave me a number to call, a hotline. And I never called a hotline in my life because I don't like talking about my problems, but I called this hotline and they just gave me a couple tools to slow down, breathe. Don't think about the negative, try to focus on 2 things that are positive in your life at this very moment, and 2 things are my kids. It goes against everything in my DNA to go sit down in front of someone and just start to talk about personal stuff. But when you look at life at your darkest point, what do you have to lose? What's the alternative? And I think that's the one thing that I would look at anybody and say, you can go talk to someone and not worry about being judged. That was my biggest concern, was they were going to, I would leave that office and they would look like, man, that guy's a mess. And I never felt that way. Well, I didn't even know what I was dealing with. I just knew I was in a dark place, a bad place, and you try to cope by any means necessary.
So how do you cope with these feelings sometimes? Do you find any exercises or things you practice to help you cope with these?
I play golf.
Oh, that's a good way to do
A
it.
whole lot of it, man.
That's a great way to do it right there.
I play golf all summer. I get away in the wintertime and play. I try to play every month. Being able to talk about it, being able to admit that you have this stress and this anxiety and not ignoring it. That's what I did all my life, was I ignored it.
Yeah, it's also the hardest part.
Yeah, ignoring it was easy. Talking about it it's a lot of work. My goal is to help someone who's thinking right now, I'm struggling, but I can't do anything about it. I'm struggling and then nobody cares. I'm struggling, I have no resources of how to attack this thing. I feel great because I want them to know if I can, they can.
Man, Will's story is so powerful. You know, my wife works in the mental health field, so I've learned a lot about anxiety and how it can present itself, you know, and some of those physical characteristics that I didn't even know were anxiety in the first place. But knowing that 1 in 5 men suffer from anxiety, and anxiety is a leader or a step towards suicide, and that men are 3.5 times more likely to die by suicide, that's scary stuff.
Yeah, and half the time we don't even know we're dealing with it. You know, Will taking the time to share his story, it's a great opportunity to save a life.
Still to come on this Men's Health special, we turn our attention to cancer.
A man doesn't talk about this.
This is something obviously that can happen to anybody.
The symptoms and stories of 2 men that caught their disease before it could take their lives.